Hi everyone, I'm Ben, and this is the Board Game Blueprint. This week, we're going to be showing a video that I created in collaboration with CUDO Plays about how to upload your game design into Roll20, the online tabletop for RPG playing. It might seem a little maybe counterintuitive or not obvious at the very beginning, but go ahead and sit down for a long while and see how you can easily import your components and game files into their system so that you can play online with anyone. So let's jump on over to the table next door and see what we have in store. Hi everyone, I'm Ben, a past participant of CUDO Plays, and I'm here today to talk about another alternative to virtual tabletop playtesting that isn't Tabletop Simulator or Tabletopia, but we're going to instead be looking at Roll20. Roll20 is an online resource for a lot of, again, tabletop role-playing games that generally are geared towards story-based narratives and play between players, including Dungeons & Dragons and Pathfinder, but we're going to show a little bit about how you can actually import maybe some of your components for your board game into Roll20. It's an entirely free service that you can have an access or make an account for, and with some extra paid possibilities as well. But for today, we're going to go just dive into a little bit deeply into the free account. So after you've created your account, you'll be kind of greeted with this sort of screen, and to create a new game, we can click the pink Create New Game button, which has the same aesthetic as CUDO Plays, or you can go to Games, and in the drop-down, click Create New Game. So let's go ahead and do so now. As we load up, we'll be greeted with this screen on the left, Start New Game, and create a game name. So let's call this CUDO Plays the Fan board game. Awesome. And you can add extra tags for people to help find your game, in their current or in Roll20's entire browsing system. We don't really need any of that stuff. And of course, optional character sheets and things for templates. We won't need any of those either. So let's just go ahead and create game. Here we are. So we can add little thumbnails and reference kind of notes, again, for ourselves, for anyone to be able to get a couple more bits of information about the game before jumping in, but generally speaking, I think we're just going to go ahead and launch game. Before that, though, we'll notice that this was created by us for a free account, and we can also invite players. So later on, we'll talk about how you can share links to your Roll20 game. Players will be, I believe, recommended to have a Roll20 account beforehand. At least for a campaign-based game, you can actually have players subscribe to your games. But for right now, let's just dive into actually what is possible in Roll20. We'll be greeted, with this delightful loading screen to let us know about some cool paid features. But we also have on the right-hand side a quick little shortcut in chats. So Roll20 is pretty neat in that you can just create messages and shoot them off to everyone in the chat. So you could say, hello, and thank you for joining in CUDO Plays. If you weren't already concurrently running an audio call through Google Meet or Discord or Zoom Meets, anything like that. Now, we'll also go ahead and mention that invite players, you can copy this link, and that will again send people to this game that we are just about to create following the fact. But just like a regular chat room, you type your message and you press enter to send it into the Ethersphere. Roll20 also has capability for video and audio, so we can actually see ourselves over here if I had it enabled. However, I noticed that with some of the other, again, voice softwares, that if you were broadcasting through both, there would be a kind of grating echo going on. So I've just disabled that on my own side of things. But you can always enable that and just play around with that on Google and such to find it. But it can be nice, to see your other players, your fellow players over here if you like. But anyhow, this is the general or generic first setting of Roll20. We can zoom out with this feature here, this scroll bar, and see the entire board surface. So that is essentially what this white area is going to be. And let's see, it looks like it's pretty long. Let me go ahead and just zoom out a bit more. Yes, it's actually a square. There we are. But we also see a number of tools on the left-hand side, which is going to be how we not only bring in components, but also interact with all things in the game. So before we even get started on that, if you didn't want a square board surface, play surface, we can hit this top tab here, the page toolbar, and have a few different available things at our disposal. So the first thing is going to be first board area. So this is going to be, we could rename it to board 1. And as you can imagine, we can create a new page and edit that board 2. And have different states of play. So this basically will work as different games if you have multiple that you wanted to set up in Roll20. You'll also notice this fancy players banner, and basically whatever banner it is set at is going to be what everyone who are guests in your Roll20 game will see. So now that I've switched everyone to board 2, I can edit board 1, and no one will know the difference because they'll be looking. It'll be player facing on this blank board 2 space. But let's say that, yeah, some of the things that we wanted to do was either duplicate board 1 instead of having to start from scratch with your next game. It has very similar components. I believe, yeah, you'll be able to carry over many of the things by simply duplicating a page. You can also discard a page, trash one of these that's no longer useful to you, and also hit the settings to customize a few more things, including the width and height and background color, so on and so forth. So if you can make it out here, the board currently is 25 spaces wide by 25 spaces tall, and so we can adjust that essentially with these boxes here. I should say, yep, the pixel count on this side is the 25 boxes, and then we can actually set, or the boxes right here are set to 70 pixels each. So depending on kind of your images and the size of those, you may need to change or adjust a few values. The background colors, again, gonna just start default as white, and the scale of grid cell distance. This basically, in Dungeons and Dragons and such, you have your lengths or distances between different squares, essentially. Yep. And so in D&D, generally speaking, each square is 5 foot wide, or 5 feet wide, and that's what this scale is here. The grid type you can actually change if you wanted to go more hexagon or hexagon, vertical or horizontal, depending on your game type. So that's pretty cool. And measurements and cell widths here, I believe, is going to be, yep, where we would change how many pixels each thing would be. So you can just kind of change the values, press tab out to see it adjusted, or use the arrow keys. Yep, right here. Color is going to be the grid color, so the little lines here. I'll zoom in just a second. Opacity is going to be how clear it is through to see, because if you have a background image, you'll still want to maybe see the grid. And you can actually add audio to your games in Roll20, which is pretty cool for some ambiance, additional immersion and such. But let's go ahead and hit cancel. This is pretty much all that you need to see for, yeah, like this board area here. And again, you can have almost infinite games imported, which I wouldn't recommend necessarily. Hopefully you can finish some before starting a few extra, but it's always good to have that option. So let's see here. Yeah, I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer. And as you can see, yep, there's the grid. It's a very light gray, which is nice. I actually have my mouse zoom set with the wheel to scroll in and out, but that setting can also be changed. Before we get into, any of the actual importation, let's just go over to the settings of Roll20 to see some more things here. So display name, you can change that to be whatever you like. Usually your name is going to be good when you're wanting to refer to players and such. You can save that name, of course, as well. Master music we'll talk about later on. Enabled background chat beep, so if you want people to hear when someone is sending a message, and also see over here on the side if they're in another menu, then you can leave this checkbox checked. Window pop-ups for characters, yeah, probably don't need to worry about that necessarily. Enable advanced dice icons, yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. I'm going to enable 3D dice because they are very fun to me. Automatically roll 3D dice, yeah, let's go ahead and do that too. Enable chat avatars, so basically in the chats, your little thumbnail will be changed if you allowed for different avatars for the different players. You probably won't necessarily be necessary. Chat timestamps, maybe not so much. Unless you wanted to kind of keep a record of when players were asking certain questions, that sounds pretty useful, as it might turn out. Alphabetically sort token actions, just leave it on there for now, that's fine. Enable animated graphics, sure, why not? Although we won't be necessarily worrying about them just yet. Use scroll to zoom or pan. I'm gonna go ahead and hit pan, so then that way, when we're moving in and out, we're actually gonna scroll up and down the page. I think that's pretty good, and if you have a middle mouse wheel, you can actually pan using that as well, changing the direction by clicking and holding, and then moving the mouse in the direction that you want the camera to change. Cleared current chat log, so if you were going to be bringing more people in and didn't want them to see any spoilers from the previous game, you can just click that there. And all this other stuff, yeah, it's pretty not necessary, especially again if you're using audio from another source. So all that being said, our settings have been made and they automatically revert or apply when clicking or not. So I think that's pretty useful. But let's get the actual good stuff right. As we saw here in the shortcuts, to roll dice, which is pretty easy, you just have to type /roll, the number of dice, and then the type of die. You can also add modifiers. Oh, there we go. There's those virtual dice we're talking about. Oh, almost hit that natural 20. But it'll also show up here on the screen. So if you didn't want to worry about these actual dice showing up and waiting for Roll20 to load them, you can again just disable or toggle off the 3D dice and all that stuff. But I think it's pretty fun myself. Anyway, so we know how to roll dice. Let's just roll some more dice. Let's say roll 4 d6s. And they should appear, yep, right there on the screen. They're in the color of our player, and we can actually toggle that as well by clicking on the square and then pressing to whatever color we want. But I'm totally fine with gold. Yellow is my favorite color actually, so this is perfect. 4144. That's pretty darn good. I'm really happy with that actually. But what'll make me even happier is bringing in cards and tokens into Roll20 so that we can actually maneuver them or manipulate them to play a game. So let's go ahead and basically drag our images, ooh, that was really loud, into Roll20. I have this window set up here, and I have a number of tokens that I want to bring in. I have a few doodles, which will act as the player colors. So if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to actually highlight all of these things that I want as tokens and drag them into Roll20. You can see that there's a little move icon and the number 6. That's how many items I have selected. By dropping it in, it's going to upload into Roll20, which is perfect. Oh yeah, and there we are. So they all have their little systems there, or shapes and whatnot, which is pretty cool. And as you saw, there's kind of a layering system as well. So Roll20 has very generic layering system. You can right click on an object and click layer, and you can change it to the map layer, token layer, or GM layer. That's not exactly what I was referring to though. I actually meant to go front or back, and it won't actually go 1 or 2 in front. You just have to go all the way to the front or all the way to the back, which isn't the end of the world. But you also saw me manipulating, changing these icons around, or moving them around, and so that's as easy as left clicking to select and then just dragging wherever you want. You can also scale all of these objects by clicking their right corners and dragging them in and out, or left corners, whatever you like. So if we really wanted to, we could scale these down so it's one, they take up 1 square. And so again, like that 5 feet in D&D terms, D&D distance, is going to be how these tokens can occupy spaces. But let's just go ahead and make them right in the middle there. Instead of a 3x3 or a 4x4, let's just go 2x2. And we can do these all, manually, and I think we can actually probably do them all at the same time. So I brought these in as sort of achievement tokens for players to interact with, maybe pick up while they're moving them through the game. So to select multiple objects, you can left click, press and hold shift, and then while pressing and holding shift, click on anything else that you want to select, and you can scale them all down and move them all together as a unit, which is pretty cool. Speaking of units, you can right click and then group. Oh, it's not going to show because it's too far up there, but I believe if we group, oh, where are you, huh? Click, 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 and oh, I guess not. We'll just have to use the keyboard shortcut Control G, or I think Command G for you Mac users, to group them together. Let's see if that did anything for us. Whoops. And we're jumping ahead a little bit. That's totally okay though. Here we are. Let's see here. Yes, okay, all right. So we have these objects. All right, it didn't want to group them. That's okay. We'll get into that again in a little bit here. But manipulating objects, moving them around, you can use your arrow keys as well, which can be pretty useful for just getting them to work that way. And I do want to mention that we right now are the GM, the game master, because we've created this game. If we want players to be able to interact with these pieces instead of only just seeing them on the board and not being able to click or move at them, we'll have to right click or go into settings and then change controlled by. So we're going to click all players, which will then allow anyone to move them. However, if you have it prepared ahead of time, you might be able to actually change to or dictate a certain player to only be able to change their team color, etc. So that may require a little bit of upkeep time at the very beginning. Again, to get into these settings, you can click on an object, click on a token, as they're referred to as, and click the gear symbol, or I think if you can just double click really fast, it'll bring it up automatically. So we can change the controlled by again to be all players, perhaps, depending on the game. I think that's totally fine. People are usually respectful enough to not mess with other people's tokens and stuff, but you'll just want to make sure that you save the settings after you've done so. All right, very good. So yeah, right now, in fact, as the GM, we can also, under settings, and if you were very astute, you'll have noticed we can rejoin as player. Going to load everything up, and we shall see if these tokens are adjustable by us as players. So it's going to load in. Yep, we've got this thing. You can hit this, don't show this again. I'm totally fine to just close out myself. But let's see. Oh, now here's the thing. If you recall, our player banner was on the blank page, so those tokens that we just added in do not exist. So we'll have to go over to Rejoin as GM, load that in, and then move that player banner over to our game one, which isn't a big deal. Here we go, page toolbar, drag this over, and pop it down. So we'll close this and rejoin as player one more time. Okay, close that, and here are our tokens. Awesome. So it loads in the game at 100% view. Close this. So as we can see, yeah, we can click and select our blue CUDO Dudo, or Dudo Cyan as I've named it. But if I try to click Dudo Magenta, I cannot. So that all players function is going to be really useful for if you want certain things to be locked in place or not. But all that being said, we'll just jump back on over, and I'll just go ahead and look at these little things again. To the GM side of things, because that's going to be, again, how we organize all of our objects. Beautiful. All right, so I'll just zoom out a little bit here. And we know dice, we know tokens and how to move them, how to allow players to move them as well. But real quick, let's say that you had a board. If you were really cool, you would have a board image all selected. And I do have one because I am very cool. I'll show you that in just a second. But if you didn't, you can also add drawings. So a few other options available on the toolbar is to draw shapes. And so the left is going to be the border color. So as we'll see, I can click and create a rectangle-ish shape there. But if you wanted to fill in that border with another color, let's say red, yeah, we can go ahead and do that by selecting these options. Perfect. Now I'm creating perfect squares, and I'm doing that by pressing and holding Shift when I click a certain point that I want to generate or start our shape. And then while pressing and holding Shift, you can drag your mouse to create, those squared off edges. So that looks really nice to me. But if I didn't, and I can just kind of go all over the place, it does not adhere to the grid that's already been created. Oh, let's say that we made this way too large. We can go back to our Move tool, click on this shape, and press Delete to get rid of it. So that way we can remove anything that is not wanted. Let's see. This one here, these ones are less cooperative, and I wonder why that is. I don't have all the answers myself, I'm so sorry to say, but as you saw here, I can click and drag a selection area, and anything within that will be selected that I can then delete. You can also create circle shapes as well. So by drawing shape and hovering over, we'll see this hint: draw a rectangle, hold Alt for circle and ellipse, and hold Shift to snap to grid. So I'm going to go ahead and hold Alt while also pressing Shift, clicking and holding, to create a perfect circle. Yeah, or just about perfect. When it sticks to the grid. So that's pretty cool. If you had like a certain area that you wanted players to keep certain resources or discs, tokens in a ring of some kind, you can always draw it out here. But you can also freeform draw, freehand draw, and we can also change the thickness of this line. I'm gonna go with extra large just to make it super obvious where we're at. And similar rules are here. You can freeform and create organic lines just with your mouse, but if you press and hold Shift, you can create perfect lines. Oop, let's see, there, oh, maybe not. I thought I had it over here in the draw. The tool that I'm thinking of is the polygon line. This is the one where we hold Shift and press Ctrl-Z to kind of like undo certain lines. So in the role-playing sense, this is getting a little distracting here. Let me see if I can clear drawings is what I'm gonna do. It's gonna destroy, delete everything that's here. And there is a warning sign just to make sure, cleared, all good to go. And I have the polygon line set. So we can create, geometric kinds of, have to have the tool selected. Geometric types of structures for maybe rooms and such in RPG style environment. There we go. So yeah, maybe this is like a barn, looking at it from top-down view, such and such. We have openings and corridors, we have more rooms to be gone through and explored. Maybe like is this gonna be a septagon? Something like that, yeah. A heptagon, I think is the proper term there. And such and such. So yeah, all kinds of cool ways that you can draw bounding boxes for cards. And so yeah, let's go ahead and get on into how to bring cards in. Lastly though, is to draw a text box and label things. So this is the main castle. And we can't quite see what that is right now, but we can highlight this and change the text to be a lot more legible. 40, and we can change the color of the text. We can also change the font. Limited selection here, but that's okay because we probably don't really need too many. But this is a really great way. So let's say that we were going to create a card area for players to put played cards down into. Again, we can use draw shape or freehand it or polygon line. I'm gonna go ahead and draw shape. And let's see here, I'm gonna go ahead and press and hold Shift and just drag that out, and this text we could move on down here and say discard pile. Oops. Once I select in there and highlight. Ooh. Yeah. All right, that's fine. We can do it the old-fashioned way. Discard pile. Perfect. And ta-da, we're labeled out. But we'll get into some of those cards right about now. I just want to go ahead and show that we can press, you can select a drawing and press delete to get rid of it, just like with anything else. And now here's the good stuff. So, cards and decks are pretty interesting in Roll20. It's something that I recently only found out about, so hopefully this is useful to you as well. We're going to go over here to the macro option, which is going to be the ... more or less, with the kind of notebook-looking idea. And we have decks. So right now, there is a default player deck, a playing card deck inside, and we can press show to reveal it, essentially. We're going to create our own deck in just a second, but I just want to show off a few of these functions here to really display the power of Roll20 that I had no idea about. So we can shuffle this deck by pressing shuffle, and basically you can click the card to draw it into your hand, which is pretty sweet. You can also press deal to deal a certain number of cards to either a certain number of players or all players. So let's say that we want to deal a 5-card hand to all players. So we have that selected, and we're going to hit deal. And now, it doesn't look like anything's happened, but over on our player kind of avatar location, we can see that there are 5 cards available in hand of Ben M. So we can just click this, and we can see all the cards that are present. Now notice, there's also a selection for all cards or by deck, because you can have, as you might imagine, in a board game or card game, multiple decks to be interacted with. And Roll20 is able to distinguish between them based on how you upload them into their system, which is really intelligent, really cool, and wowing. So yeah, I have a pretty good hand here. And if you wanted to see a little bit more of this stuff, you would have to, I think, just move your little icon over a bit, to a more prime position. So here, your toolbar isn't obscuring it. But there we are. By deck, we have all 5 cards, all cards in hand, as we can see here, the little labeling system there. So just to hide that again, we can press that 5 once more. And that's pretty fantastic. How do you play cards, though, into Roll20? Well, it's as easy as clicking and dragging. and the card should then appear. Yep, that's right, there we are. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, we can actually, well, clearly you can see that you can increase the size of a card just as usual with the kind of scaling tool, diagonal to retain the proportions, the relations between the dimensions, or you can click the side and just like make it really wide or really skinny. Not my preferred way, but Control-Z will undo that, no problem. And it kind of magnetizes to the grid, which is pretty cool to see. So that's going to be how we can play cards out onto the table. Now, there's another cool feature. Let's say that you played a few rounds and then you're good to go to start again. You need to reshuffle the cards. You can go back to here and you can press recall on the card deck. Again, that is being shown. You can press recall and it'll ask if you want to take all cards or only certain cards that are on the table, in players' hands, etc., which is really neat to me. So it doesn't take all the cards at once, it'll actually just take one of these decided ways here. If there were more player hands available, I'm not sure if it would be by player. I'm guessing no, but that's something that you could totally experiment with if you had a few other folks in your room. But it'll also ask if you want to shuffle after recalling. I'm gonna hit yes, and let's go ahead and recall all the cards on the table. So before we do, hit cancel, and I'll just play a couple more cards out. Cool. You'll notice that it's the default size of the deck, so that is something to take note of. And we'll see, yeah, if it'll recall them all as the same size here. So we'll just close our hand size, go over to recall, and press recall on table. There we go, they're all gone. And when I hit recall, I did not hit shuffle after recalling, so we might just have to shuffle right here and now. Shuffle. Okay, all good. But that's the general gist of playing cards from our hands onto Roll20. And I've been told that it might not be available for interaction with by other players. I believe from their hands it should be no problem, but I don't know. I think the deck might only be viewable by the DM, by the GM. So you know what, since we have this as not hiding but shown, let's just go ahead and quickly switch over to Rejoin As Player and see what they would see. All right, yep, this is all good. We can close that. Haha, so there is a deck of cards and we can draw from them. We can pick how many cards we need, but we can't do any of the shuffling or any of the recalling. That is specifically for the GM. Really quick, you'll notice that our tools are a little bit limited. Our GM one had a few more, including those GM layers and such, which we can go over. But yeah, for players, it's a lot less choice of what you can do. You're mostly just interacting as you can, as told or allowed by the GM. So make sure, as the GM, as the game creator, make sure that, yeah, you allow players to interact with everything that you need them to, or, well, if you have to, yeah, do it on the fly. No sweat there. Okay, but yeah, let's go back, and again, as the player, you can also draw and stuff. So we'll just say, hi, exclamation point, nice. And really quick, since we're here, we can also do a measuring tool, which will allow us, once selected, to like plot out the distance between certain things, which again is really useful in like an RPG standpoint. For here, you might not need it as much, but you can also imagine changing the feet to maybe just like say one block, and then quickly count out how distant or how far away things are. If you have like a grid-based fighting game or some such, could be pretty neat. So here as well, we have the dice table. So you can click the dice to roll. It'll show in the chat as well as, yep, on the table with those virtual dice, which you don't have to have if you don't want to. Again, it kind of adds to the loading time, processing of the browser and stuff. But for right now, for the demo, it's pretty neat. And you can also select multiple instead of just clicking one. So you can go up to this many types, and you can also do like factorial stuff, which is crazy. So let's go ahead and just click factorial, and let's click factorial 3d10. What's gonna happen, it's gonna roll 3d10, and then it's gonna roll 2d10, if I'm not mistaken, and then it's gonna roll 1d10 afterwards. So let's just click and see if it does the rest. Or I could be wrong. Let's see. Okay, well, I'll let you guys play with factorials. I'm not very good at them myself. So anyhow, yeah, and then just like some quick help and stuff. Yeah, let's go ahead and just pop that open really fast. A new tab, of course. Yep, no sweat there. Got a few different promoted articles, shortcuts probably if you wanted to search, and like specific things as well you could type into their search window. Let's go ahead and close this out though, and get back into the gaming. So we want to create a custom deck for our game, so rejoin as GM. Critically hitting, pretty fun, pretty cool. All right, and again, we're gonna go to macros, which is not superly obvious, but it is what it is. We're gonna go to decks. We're gonna go to add, and here we go, new deck. We can name it here, and we're gonna call this actions, okay? And show deck to players. Yes, the answer is yes, because we want players to be able to draw from this deck. Players can draw from cards, yeah, or can draw cards from this deck, yes. Cards in deck are infinite. Oh, very interesting. That sounds pretty scary. But yeah, sure, let's try it. Always a random card, draw through the deck, shuffle, and repeat. Yeah, I like that option. This is something that I haven't tried with myself, but I'm pretty excited to see what happens. Allow choosing specific cards from the deck. We're going to disable that. But what is interesting is that you can kind of like allow who chooses what, and it'll show, yeah, either the fronts or the back. So like, this could be useful in some games where like you're going for a specific card. Maybe you don't want that though. I have no idea how like a deck builder would necessarily support this. It sounds really cool though. So if you do experiment with it, please let us know. Really excited to find out. But this is just going to be a basic overview here. So we're just going to disable that. Discard pile. Oh, it might have its own. Sure thing. Let's do one with the fronts. Yes, show fronts. So that way we can see what was just played. When played to the tabletop, we wanted to be face up, of course. Although face down is pretty cool. There must be a way to flip it. We'll leave it as face up for now. Considered a drawing or a token? Ah, yes. We'll go ahead and leave it as a drawing. Bubbles and stats is interesting, and we can show that once more. You may have seen it earlier in the video about like different sort of reminders that you can allow for players to see, especially in, again, the RPG sense. But card size you can dictate as well. So let's say we'll make it card size 70 times 2. So again, it's going to be like based on the pixel count of the squares, and right now each square is 70 by 70 pixels, I believe. A little bit of math. So we'll do 210 by 280. Let's do 350, and we'll just see what happens here. In other players' hands, players can see each other's numbers of cards. So this refers to, yep, down here below, what is available. Front of cards, not so much, but we can do that for the DM, ha ha ha, or the GM, excuse me. Now here, we're going to add the card back. And it's as easy as clicking and dragging, just as we did before. And luckily for us, I've prepared a card back that I want to use. So click and drag that right into Roll20. It's going to go ahead and select that and load it in, which is really cool. Ta-da! Look at that proof. Beautiful stuff. And we can duplicate the deck or delete the deck. We don't want to do either. We're going to add cards. And we're going to add multiple cards to it. So we can click this, and we have the same old drag and drop option, which is really cool. So I've gone and created these 6 cards, and again, these are all going to be randomized and stuff based on our settings, which is really exciting to me. You'll notice that the amount of space each one takes up is going to be included. I believe every account has, for Roll20, has like 100 gigabytes of free space or something really cool. So you can add in tons of cards, tons of tokens for player pawns and such. That was the whole idea with the doodles there. So pretty neat. We're going to hit create. And here we go, converting into cards. I hope it doesn't take too long for us here. Yep, again, perfect, on point, on fleek color scheme with Roll20 and CUDO plays. It's like they knew we were coming. Each image is going to go ahead and do its thing. And as we finish up here, we can see all the cards are included, and all the names that we kind of had prepared beforehand are also present. So all of this is now in. I'm happy to go with it. Let's hit save changes and see what happens. All right, looking good. We can see that the actions deck does exist. I'll just go ahead and call it action deck, sure. Yeah, actions deck, just because. Save changes, and the number of cards present is there. It isn't seen though, because we haven't shown it yet. So let's go ahead and do that, and boom, we can see our actual action deck with the card back. Very, very cool. You can deal cards again to players. Oh, and this is pretty neat because it's random and an infinite deck. So generally, for most of our games, we won't want them to be infinite, but this is a quick creative exercise, and I just wanted to find out as well. I'm going to do it to all players, and we'll hit deal. Nice, okay, and so as we can see, there's its own little pile for the new deck of cards next to the original one. So if you had, you know, landscape cards and portrait cards, or like different function cards, you can absolutely distinguish between the two, or I should say Roll20 does that for you. So we click here and we can see all cards, or we can do it by deck, and that's pretty nice here. Oop. Let me go ahead, and what I want to do is just shift me over. I guess I can't do that right now. Why is that, Roll20? Ah, there we go. I just missed. That's why. It was because of me, naturally. User error, operator error. And then, yeah, we can kind of scroll down and see. So there is the defining line and then the name as well, versus all cards, which does not split them apart for us. So very cool indeed. Now, we did change a couple settings, so let's see what happens when we scroll backwards a little bit and throw one of these cards into play. So I'll pick this one, and we'll see, yeah, the card size is about the one that I wanted. I'm pretty happy with that, actually. And it is now played, and it is face up. So actually, maybe we could go like 420 or something like that. But anyway, the card is now in play. Boom shakalaka. Now, I don't know, let's see. Flip card, perfect. That's the way we do it. So you can right click and then see a few different options. Again, this is mostly for the GM, as the player will have a few less, but that's kind of, yeah, the general idea here. Now, in terms of going into a discard pile, I don't quite see, hide discard, let's see. Hide the discard, maybe, is that what that is? Oh, there are two separate options. Let's hit discard. Let's close some of these things here. And actions deck discard pile. Okay, right now there is nothing. How do we discard a card? Right click, delete is not the same thing. And let's see. Right click, take card, flip card, edit. Okay. Yeah, we might. Okay, no, we cannot drag it into the discard pile. That's okay. Maybe if we go into the player side of things, we can try that out really fast. It's probably not super necessary because I believe we can recall, and we can choose the discard pile. Probably if it existed, we'll just hit recall on the table, no sweat. And then let's go ahead and flip back. There's going to be lots of this, which is pretty neat. In other programs like Tabletopia and Tabletop Simulator, there isn't really this aspect of things, unless I think in TTS you can go into the hot seat idea here. But Roll20, yeah, is doing a pretty spectacular job of showing off what is possible or capable of players while in their sense here. Actions deck discard pile. Okay, so as the GM we didn't see a discard pile, but as the players we do see one. So let's try this again. Let's throw these special ones here into there. Okay, and now that they're played, right click, flip card, take card. No thanks. I'm gonna just hit discard. All right, nope. I guess that's up to the GM, in order to make happen, which is not the end of the world. I'm not totally upset about that, but just something that you might be cognizant of. Is, for players when they're playing cards, maybe you just have like a really large, again, board area, so it doesn't cover up anything else in the game, or you might just have a designated area. That's what I was looking for. Just kind of place it right in there. So again, the GM is going to be able to change things. But looks like the players, because I drew it, so because it's still my color, I'm allowed to kind of edit a little bit here. Looks like I can mostly just move it, but as the GM, I can scale and again transform taller, shorter, etc., etc. But let's go back one last time to the GM side of things, because I want to show that you can import a board. If you had the time already set out, created something like with specific nodes and stuff, we can absolutely import that in. And what I would recommend is to actually use the layer system that we touched on briefly. So over here we have the objects and tokens, which is what players can probably manipulate. You have the map and background, hint hint, wink wink, and you have the GM info layer. So GM info layer allows you to put things on the screen that you can see as the GM, but the other players cannot, and you can actually flip like what screen, what layer it appears on to like surprise everybody. So probably not as applicable for board games, but still pretty neat if you want to expand and delve into this for your own RPG adventures. But we'll go ahead and start in the map and background layer. You'll notice that all the objects are now a little bit faded, and that means that you're actually not able to interact with them in this layer, because they're on a separate one. They're on the tokens layer. But now that we're on the map one, I'm gonna go ahead and drag out, I created this pretty cool game board image. So let's go ahead and pop that in here. And because it's on the map layer, again, players will not be able to interact with it because they are operating on the token layer. So let's see here. We have our image, and we can scale this up to size to fit our board area. Now, I knew going in that I wanted a square to fit, and so a square I have should be able to, oh, it's not a perfect square. That's okay though. Generate a board area. So yeah, if your board is a little bit of a different size, you can absolutely change the dimensions by going to the settings and then just changing the height with, again, these scrolls. I'm gonna go ahead, let's see. Oh, you know, it is a perfect, I think I just missed how far I was going. Yeah, the scroll bar's a little wonky sometimes. Okay, let's see. Oh, I was mistaken. Let's see. So we want to get rid of 3. Yep, 3 from the edge. So I will go ahead and do so now. Settings, and change the width, there we are, to 22. Hit save. And there, we have a perfect kind of board area here. Pretty nice, pretty cool. And that is locked in place because it's on the map layer. As long as we switch over to the objects and tokens, now we cannot click the board. And, well, because I have a 300 IQ, the board is present here. Now, what could be super cool is, if we zoom in here and are able to size the cubes to be the same as the squares on this board, then we can actually have the pawns moving around as like dictated by the board here. So like we can almost get to here. Might require, yeah, a little bit of stretching and such of the board to fit the grid, or you can change the grid size to try and like match things up really, really well. So then, you know, pieces are moving within your board space. The same can be said then as well for cards. Let me just zoom out again, it's getting a little busy. But you can put cards here, and you can also rotate cards as required by finding the top of the card, clicking this little node on the side, and rotating it as you like. So I believe as the GM, I can change like any kind of order, any kind of angle, and probably players too, but if you wanted a fixed angle, like a 45 or a 90, you can press and hold shift, and it should, maybe, no, make it perfectly oriented. I guess you'll just have to eyeball these ones. So sorry, everyone. But yeah, if you find out anything more, please let me know. So let's see here. I'll just kind of like try to speed along here about like what a game might look like in Roll20 here. So you kind of have like your played cards from players' hands in their inventories. So maybe these are like power-ups or something. And let's see, yeah, you have like different areas, so they only have so many spaces. You probably don't want to do a 4x4, or I'm sorry, a white on a white background. So maybe you might consider changing that. But yep, these tokens, we can just shift down to the size as required to be moving around on this board, which will be really cool once we get them to be the right size. We'll just kind of do this one more time. Maybe for your cards, the negatives, these ones here, like test, are a permanent ability, while play is a one-time use. So you might put that off to the side, so on and so forth. Let me get rid of my drawings here. So we'll go to draw and clear drawings, clear. Just get this last pawn here. So again, you can commit these to be controlled by certain players depending on which they start the game as, or which you kind of assign them, I suppose, which can be really useful. We'll just make these like really tiny. And these would be, yep, like stationed around the board for players to maybe move on to and pick up. Unfortunately, I don't believe tokens can be added into hand the same way that cards can, so you just might like, you know, pick it up and then you would just move the token over to the player who acquired it and such. So you can imagine, yeah, different currency tokens and types like that. You might be able to make, yeah, like a deck of round tokens as PNGs so that the transparency is preserved, which is really nice in Roll20. You can see that even though it fits in the square, this token is not covering up any of the grid or board below it, which is really handy and nice. So again, PNGs, transparency is preserved, which can be pretty cool, and so you can make an infinite supply of those, so then you don't have to keep copying 50 of them, unless there is a fixed supply, in which case you do only want 50 tokens. You might just like leave them on the board, but you won't be able to keep track of how many cards or their quantity necessarily. But yeah, more things to think about as you flex and create your own games in Roll20 for CUDO plays or any other contests, play testings that you would like. Last thing before I go is that I've heard tell that you can actually create or allow other players to be GMs, to have like the full range of abilities to shift things around, if you so desired. And I looked it up. It's pretty easy. Right now I'm kind of forgetting here. It might be under the settings. Let's see. It is not. I might just add it as a quick little pop-up over this video here while I'm looking for it. But another cool thing too is that there are plenty of free assets as well. So we can go under free assets and find a whole slew of characters and pawns and things that you can again drag into play and then allow players to manipulate and interact with by clicking and changing the controlled by to all players. This might be a little bit unintuitive. It might be a little tedious is the word I'm looking for, but it will definitely be all worth it because all these changes are saved by Roll20 automatically, which is pretty cool. So there's no need to press save anywhere. And as a token, you can see that, yeah, they're kind of like these little stats and such. So 10 is usually, for me, attack power. So that's like your bonus, just as a gentle reminder. Oops, 6 and enter. And then you'll see that it appears there. So green is health for me, so 24 points of health. And then blue is armor or shielding, let's say armor of 2. Now with Roll20, if you want to subtract values, all you have to do is click the value that you want, press whatever you're deducting or adding, so -8, and press enter, and it automatically does the math for you, which is pretty cool. So again, to show, that's just clicking in the bubble, removing all the words, all the numeric values there, and then adding in your modifier, so +4, and now we're at 20. So pretty cool stuff, and I believe these other tokens have it as well. That's right. So if you needed them for your different units in your game, that's one way to do it. But otherwise, yeah, like playing cards directly onto the table is pretty easy. So if you had like a Magic-esque game, you can just lay them all out here. And then to discard, you might have to ask the DM to do it. If we hit delete, does that put it into the discard? Is that what it was? Discard. This one didn't have a discard, but this one does. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete some of, where did they go? Those other cards. I'll just drop them in here. Okay, and then hit delete. And we'll check the discard. Aha, okay, so once objects are deleted, they're in the discard pile. Cool stuff. And let's see, we can recall, let's see, can we get the discard pile? Unplayed, already in deck. Not quite what we want. All right, so I guess the discard is gone for good unless you were to bring it in. Let's see. Drag to deal. Yep, okay, and then it's back. And you can, get a nice little zoom in image. Ah, yes. So that'll be one last thing that I can go over, is that if you wanted to show this off really up close, or like the actual size of the image, you can press the Z key on your keyboard to zoom in. And if you want all players as the GM to see this object, you would do the same thing, but press Shift and a Z. So holding down Shift, press Z. It looks the same to us as the DM, I believe. Wait a minute. Yeah, no, I am the GM. Because there are no players, it won't change the screen for us. It just did, never mind. There we go. So this is how you can kind of show everybody what we're looking at the same time. It's really fun for like monsters and stuff in Dungeons & Dragons when you created custom tokens and want to show off what they are. But yeah, like you could also do characters, like what they're wearing kinds of things and all that sort. But let's see here. I believe that's everything for me to go over. Copy and paste is pretty easy. Control-C, Control-V, like your regular stuff. If you don't click on a certain point, it'll kind of generate the new thing next to it, but that'll be a great way to create an army of tokens or pawns. And I want to say that's just about everything that I have to show. If you have any questions, I'm sure that CUDO Plays can answer, or I can be contacted at some point to just play around a little bit more. But yeah, tons of free assets, including not only characters, but creatures. We have were-rats and things, so that can be kind of fun if you have a certain fantasy-esque game. Roll20 would be pretty easy for you to jump into because there are so many things that you can absolutely borrow from already that are made for you, essentially. Yeah, just for you. But thank you, that's pretty much my time. I think I've gone on for a while now. If you watched the entire video, thank you so much for sticking around. Oh, I'll just click these character tokens because they look really cool and detailed. But that is about it. I hope you enjoyed CUDO Plays the fan game. But yes, that is correct. Oh, look at how cool these characters are. Really, really neat from the handbooks and such. And I think this might be new here, these chibi minis I want to check out. Oh yeah, I definitely am going to be making some more games in Roll20 myself now, seeing all this. Oh, for sure, the Sentai. And again, the dice are very cool with just typing into the chat what you want to roll or going to the dice menu and clicking them yourself. Oh yeah. Boom. That's it for me. Thanks again. I'm your friend Ben Moy, who designs board games. Feel free to reach out on Facebook. You can message me or add or at an email address, which is benjaminwmoy@gmail.com. Thank you again, CUDO Plays, for the opportunity to play around, and we will figure out that custom or that additional GM allowification very soon. Thanks all, and keep on gaming, making the games, keep on designing the games that you want to play. Bye! Still there? I really, really love what CUDO Plays is always doing for their communities to equip them on how best to playtest and prototype, and this is no exception. I hope that this video, inspired you to bring on your own game potentially, if it's light enough, I suppose, component-wise, into Roll20 so that you can play with anyone that you like to share the link with. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and click that bell icon so you can stay notified when the next video goes up. As always, I'm Ben. This has been another episode of the Board Game Blueprint, and together, let's build something great.